Hey everybody, today we're going to put on a set of Umi 1-inch drop springs and the Bmr Sway Bar on our 71 Chevelle. So I've been doing some autocross with this car last little bit and wanting to use it a little bit more. One thing I found is even with some suspension upgrades and the frame being boxed, that it still understeers real bad in the corners. So what I really want to do is I just want to lower it down about an inch, increase the spring rate in the back. The front's already got Umi Springs on it, so it's got a higher than stock spring rate, but the real magic is going to be on the sway bar. Once I get it up in the air, I'll show you why. This isn't the type of sway bar that just connects to the lower control arms and twists them bad. This actually connects up to the frame and to the axle, but I'll get the car set up on the stands and I'll tow her down and show you what I'm talking about. Alright, we got the car up in the air. You can take a look at this rear sway bar. It bolts to that lower control arm there, goes all the way across, and just bolts to there. And it doesn't touch anything else. And so how it works is if you're leaning, or the front end's going down, or however it's going, that arm will say maybe drop, and that arm will go up. And all it does is add some binding to it to not make it lean, but there's no connection to the actual axle or up to the body. It's just a binding, and you know, for maybe just a little bit driving around, fine. But this is a 1-inch bar, and I'm still understeering pretty bad on autocross events. And so this thing is going to go, and we're going to put in one that actually connects to the axle and the frame, which will allow it to do its job. So we'll get that tore off, and while I'm at it, I will unhook the shocks so I can get the axle a little bit lower, and I'll pop out those springs and put the Umi springs in. Okay, the springs are out and they're next to the Umi ones. Here on the left are the stock springs. These are just some ones I got off eBay, came from the parts house. Kind of the flavor is all the same. Here's the Umi springs. It's got a higher spring rate and they're supposed to ride an inch lower. They actually sit there a little bit taller, so I'm going to put them in and remeasure and see where it is. I actually did measure it. It was on the ground in the rear. It was about 26 3/4 up in the air on the opening. And this is why, see how this gets narrower on the top? This is why you can't cut these to lower the ride height. The front springs, they stay the same all the way up, and you can chop them to lower it down. It works just fine. But I think before I put on the new sway bar, I'm just going to shove these in and drop it back on the ground and actually see where it ends up. Alright, it's back on the ground, new springs are in. Looks like it's riding about the same height, and if I put the tape on her, it's maybe a little over a quarter more down. A bit over a 1/4 inch, maybe approaching a 1/2 inch lower, and that's okay, because you got to drive the car around, you got to let the springs settle in. So I got high hopes for it. The spring rate is definitely higher. I noticed the old ones is just able to pull right out of there, but the new ones, I had that crowbar. All right, I got the car back on the jack stands, and here it is. This is a Bmr Sway Bar. This is the part that clamps under the axle. These are the arms that go up to these brackets that go onto the frame of the car using these bushings. Now you actually don't get a set of instructions. You get this, and what happens is you're supposed to scan the QR code and the instructions. Like, all right, at least on my phone when I did it, it took me to the whole website, and I didn't get any instructions. It just wanted the part number, so I had to look that up because there's nothing here that has a part number. and I still didn't get it, so I started chopping numbers down off each end, and I was finally able to get it. And it says you need to get the car up in the air, but with the suspension loaded so you can adjust the ends. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it's looking like these brackets have to be drilled on at the same cross member that the rear muffler hanger hangs on. Alright, so here's how it looks. This is how it connects to the bar. Get this apart. This goes over the top of the axle. This comes up right below it. And if you've got a nice powder coated or painted axle, this will do a fantastic job of taking care of that for you. So I'm real happy about that. And then this is the bushing. Opens up, clamps in there, goes in there. Grease goes there, it all goes up. And then up here on this end, here's the 3 holes that allow you to be adjustable. The further out you are, the softer it is. So you want to start there and then see what works for your driving style. And then this goes up onto that cross member. And that's the part that I'm going to worry about, because it's this hole right here, because you have to come in from the front. And you got the floor there, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Okay, I got the base of the sway bar mounted, and you can see how it works. You got your U-bolt here with your bottom clamping part, and then this is your bushing housing. The directions say to use the supplied lithium grease to put in there. There wasn't any, so I just used some grease and put it in there. Got it tightened up, measured it side to side, which is just a hair over 2 inches between there and the end. And you can see it can move it up and down pretty easily, and that's its job. And so the next steps are to hook this onto the end, and then this is the bracket that goes up onto the frame. And you can see it goes way up in there. And the problem I'm having is I can get to this hole to drill it, but there's a hole in the front. And if I'm going to get up there and drill a hole in the front, then the exhaust has got to come off. I've got the factory Super Sport control arm connectors there. That might have to go off, and I still don't know if I can get it. And so I'm seriously just thinking, if I can get a flat disc up in there and clean some things up, I might just weld the thing on and forget about it. But I've got another problem, and it's a pretty big one. And the problem is that the holes aren't big enough for the parts they gave me. So if you try to put it in there, like, nope, sorry. Not going in there. And if you look at the brackets that were supplied, here's one, and here's the other, and the holes aren't the same size. So you can see that there. And so this one, good to go. It fits on there. You can maybe clean up the powder coat a little bit, but so this hole, those 3 holes, and those 3 holes got to be drilled out. So the reason why I went BMR instead of UMI, because the rest of the car is completely UMI, is that there was $130 difference in price between the two, and I thought, wow, $130, I'll save it. I mean, if I knew about the holes, I could drill those up front. Not a big deal. A couple of other things, not too bad. I mean, we're talking 130 bucks, so I'll stick with it. But I think I'll probably just, I don't know, I might drill it in place or not. But I'm going to set the drill and get everything together, and then I'll probably dig out the flap disc and set up the welder and see how that's going to go. Good morning. It's the next day, and I've got all the holes drilled out in the Sway Bar, and I only broke one drill bit, so I'm going to call that a win. And I've got it mocked up into place. I'm trying to decide if I still want to weld or just drill a hole in it. So let's take a look at it and make a decision. Okay, here it is mocked up into place. Make sure I get the light okay. You've got the Sway Bar, you got your link connector, and then you got your bracket up there. And with everything straight up, there is no way you're going to get a drill bit or a drill up in here. You can get it, I think, from the other side, but you don't know where to mark it. But if you're willing to pull this over a little bit, there's a factory hole in the frame, and things start lining up a lot nicer. I think there's enough give to make everything work good. And so what I'm going to do is, instead of welding it out, I am going to drop the springs back out, pull the shocks out of the way, and come in from the other side, enlarge that hole big enough, bolt it in, get the bottom ones in, and put it all together. And I think that'll work. So let's start on that. So the method to shove the drill bit up in there is working. I've got the holes drilled. I'm working on the others, but I ran into another problem. So here's the bolts that you use to hold the bracket onto the car. I've got one bolt already on it. The problem is the washers don't fit. They're too small. And so they do fit the U-bolts. They're holding the axle part of the Sway Bar on, but there's only 4 of those, and here there's 8. I've already swapped 2 of them out, and I was going to come up here and see what I could figure out. But basically, I'm going to do that for the other side. The washers are a little bit bigger and it fits, so at least I'll have one good bolt on each side with washers. And I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be a big deal. But this is kind of adding up to the list here. Anyway, here's the other link. They actually sent some bolts. It came with its own bolts. This is something they took off the shelf somewhere. They sent some bolts to go with it, plus they sent washers to it, so I'll use those as well. But I'm going to be a little short on this side, and I guess these will go in the bolt bin when I'm done. All right, the brackets are in. So you can see them in there. They are right there. Not a lot once they're in there, but that method of just drilling them in without the spring, that worked perfectly. They lined up with those existing holes. So now I'm going to go ahead and bolt them in, put on the grease zerks on the connections, and give everything a couple of pumps, and we'll see where we're at. Well, it's done. There she is, all bolted on and ready to go. It was quite a bit harder than I thought it was going to be because of the problems I ran into, but functionality, it's going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to using it. So let's do a recap. The springs went on just fine. Umi Springs, 1-inch drop, a little bit higher spring rate, should help me out in the corners, keep it from leaning just a little bit more. And the rest of that, you use the Sway Bar to tune it in. Let's talk about the Sway Bar, Bmr. Functionality, it should work perfectly fine. Looks great on there. Once it's installed, it's done. Had some issues though. I had to redrill all those holes. The directions were a bit of a pain. You have to go to their website, look it up, type in the part number. Just print something out and throw it in the box. That would have made life a little bit easier. And then the washers were a little bit too small. I've got extra ones on the bench right now. And I don't really know what happened there. Maybe the link arms are the wrong ones and the bolts are too big, but one of the holes was drilled correctly on the frame bracket, so I don't know. Would I buy it again? Would I go through that to save $130? Yeah, I'm cheap. I would do it. But anyway, it is 1-inch drop spring install and sway bar install. Big upgrade. I'm looking forward to it. I actually won't know if it's going to work until I actually go autocross it, because people don't actually push their cars that hard on the street. You think you do, but not really. So I'll be doing that early this month, and there'll be a video on it. Thanks for watching.